3 years ago, Stephen Fry was interviewed on an RTE television programme. Stephen Fry, as you know, is well known for his atheist views, and you might not be surprised that he said a few things that were anti-God or anti the idea of God. In fact, he said God was an utter maniac who is mean-spirited, mean-minded. During that interview, Mr. Fry was asked what he would say if one day he actually came face-to-face with God.
How dare you? How dare you create a world in which there is such misery that is not our fault? It's not right. It's utterly, utterly evil. Why should I respect a capricious, mean-minded, stupid God who creates a world which is so full of injustice and pain? That's what I'd say.
Well, what happened next became international news. He was investigated by the police in the Republic after complaints that he had committed the criminal offence of blasphemy. Last year, the authorities confirmed that that investigation was being dropped because they could not find enough people who were actually offended by his comments. Now, a referendum has been scheduled, we think, for about October, isn't that right, to try to remove the blasphemy law from the Republic's constitution. And, well, you might be surprised to discover this, that blasphemy is still a common law offence in Northern Ireland. In a moment, we'll ask if any country needs a blasphemy law. But first, I've been speaking to Professor David Nash from Oxford Brookes University, who's been researching the use of blasphemy laws in Europe and around the world.
At the moment, in Europe, there are places where blasphemy is hanging on. In Europe, places like Austria, Greece, and Italy. But in many respects, the tide is running against these laws in Europe. And the push for this is the quest for free speech. And in a sense, the European Union and its laws harmonise across nations and want to see minimum standards of free speech. And blasphemy laws don't tend to fit in with that. So they're somewhat on the wane in Europe. And in a sense, this explains what's happening in Ireland.
What about the rest of the world?
Yeah, but there's a thriving culture of use in parts of Africa and the Indian subcontinent and indeed further east. So places like Pakistan, Malaysia, Indonesia, Iran and Saudi Arabia have all got very strong cultures of blasphemy laws that they are extremely able and willing to use at a moment's notice.
Let's turn to the Republic of Ireland and its blasphemy legislation. What constitutes blasphemy in Ireland?
The problem with the law in Ireland is it was incredibly badly drafted. It talks about it having to be grossly offensive. And the problem with that is it's very difficult to define in law what grossly means as opposed to slightly or mildly. It also says it's got to outrage a significant number of believers. And again, significant is not defined in law. And again, it doesn't fit with things because, as we know, the Stephen Fry incident involved one person complaining. That's normally how it happens in the West these days. One person complains. And, that doesn't meet the definition of significant number of people offended. The other problems with that law is it's got defences which constitute something being of artistic, scientific or academic merit. Now, again, that would be fascinating to see that defined in court. What is genuine academic merit or artistic merit and what is sort of phony and bogus academic merit. It's very difficult. And, were cases ever to come to the courts under law, there are just all sorts of problems. And given that, it's no surprise that the police to whom Stephen Fry's remarks were reported decided to distance themselves from the whole thing and preferably do nothing if they could.
And in Northern Ireland, a common law offence of blasphemy, still on the books, if we
That's
could put
right.
it that way, in common law.
It's still the common law offence of blasphemy, which is what the law was in England until 2008. And common law really means that someone has to obviously complain about something they see, hear or experience. But the thing about common law is that it's very strongly influenced by the attitudes and approach of the judge, who can more or less decide on each case and each case and its merits on each individual occasion, which is, in a sense, makes it rather more dangerous than statute law or putting the right of prosecution in the hands of a public prosecutor who can use issues like public interest to determine whether a prosecution should proceed.
When was the last time the blasphemy law was used in the UK?
Well, the last time it was properly used as a blasphemy law was the case against Gay News, which is just over 40 years ago. And what happened in that case was a newspaper, Gay News, published a poem depicting a Roman soldier having sex with the crucified body of Christ. And what happened was that this poem was sent to Mary Whitehouse. A copy of the poem was sent to Mary Whitehouse, and she brought a prosecution.
Well, that's David Nash there on blasphemy here and around the world. Is there any need for a blasphemy law anywhere in the 21st century when we have so much public commitment to the idea of free speech? Michael Nugent is with us from Chair of Atheist Ireland. He is the Chair of Atheist Ireland. And Ali Selim from the Islamic Cultural Centre of Ireland, also in Dublin. Welcome. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Ali, do you support a blasphemy law?
Yeah, I do.
Why?
Well, Ireland has rapidly become multicultural and multi-faith society. And when it comes to social issues, we are desperately in need of law to regulate our relationship. We can't just leave it open for individuals' interests, so people will judge their situations based on their education, their culture, or their personal interest. There is a need for regulation to determine issues of common interest, I would describe it.
Michael?
Well, I think we should respect individual people. We should respect their right to their religious or non-religious beliefs. But there's a distinction between that, which is protected already by laws against incitement to religious hatred. There's a distinction between that and being critical of ideas. And religious ideas and beliefs should be just as open to criticism and indeed ridicule if people feel so, as are non-religious ideas and beliefs. I'm quite happy for people to be as critical of atheism as they wish, and to be as offensive about atheism as they wish. It doesn't prevent me from continuing to believe what I believe, or it doesn't prevent harmony within the state. In fact, if you look around the world, the countries that have least religious harmonies are the countries that do have blasphemy laws.
Ali, when you already have, for example, legislation protecting people from incitement to religious or racial hatred or violence, why have a law which censors thought or speech beyond that?
Oh, come on, there is a fatal mistake here. Well, actually, what we're talking about today has nothing to do with freedom of speech. We are talking about verbal abuse. Do you
freedom
have the
to
right
offend?
Yeah, that's what we are talking about today. See, like, we are definitely pro criticism and in applying your intellectual faculties. That is the whole idea of academia. That's why we have universities. That is perfectly fine. But this leads us to the conclusion that we have two types of criticism. We have constructive criticism that should be encouraged, and we have deconstructive criticism that should not be tolerated. If some people, because they don't share belief, because they don't share value, they fail to understand the paramount importance of religion and religious values for certain people, that does not give them the right to mock at them, does not give them the right to ridicule such religious values that for certain people they see it as their entire life.
But are you making an argument there, it would seem, that for prosecuting people for saying things that you regard as mocking or offensive?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Are you making an argument for prosecuting people under the criminal law for saying things that you regard as offensive or mockery?
I believe if somebody does not believe in God, this does not give him the right to call God a bad name, does it? Well, because this God is important for certain people. It's just like some people would see their religion as religion the most important aspect of their life. It gives them reason. It gives them purpose in this life. And if somebody calls their God a bad name, it is very offensive.
Michael Nugent.
Well, you're entitled to offend people. People say things that offend me all the time. Ali says things that offend Ahmadi Muslims. He says that Ahmadi Muslims are not proper Muslims. They consider that to be just as offensive as things that some people would say.
No, if you say Islam is not the right religion and you present an argument for that, that's your view, you're entitled to this belief and debating that. But if you call God a bad name, I don't think that's the right way to approach it.
Yeah, but there's a difference between you thinking it's the right way to approach it on the one hand and the state enforcing your beliefs on the other.
It's not enforcing, is the state is enforcing respect among various members of one and the same society.
Yeah, and how the state legitimately enforces that is we should protect people. And the state should protect people from harm, including incitement to hatred on the ground of religion. But there's a distinction between that and criticism of ideas.
No,
what the Blasphemy Law is about is preventing criticism. It's not about the constructive versus non-constructive isn't the issue. The issue is the distinction between people and ideas. We should be respectful towards people, but we don't have to be respectful towards their ideas. I assume you wouldn't suggest that we have to be respectful towards the idea of Nazism or the idea of racism. Ideas don't have to be protected. People have to be protected.
And if these ideas for some people are seen at their entire life, how do you sort out a problem of this nature?
What you do is you encourage people to respond more proportionately to the fact that in the world different people believe different things.
Fine.
So if you believe strongly in the power of Allah to have created the universe, to have determined how the universe runs, that should be enough for you. The fact that somebody else expresses something differently shouldn't affect either you or if Allah exists, shouldn't affect the power of Allah.
Can I just ask,
Ali,
fine.
You can
Just ask that you pull back a little bit
believer or a non-believer, but that does not give you the right to abuse the God that I believe in.
Ali, can I just ask you to pull back a little bit from your microphone? We're just getting a little bit of popping there. Fascinating conversation. Stay with us. 03030 80 55 55. Michael Nugent sees no need for a blasphemy law anywhere in the world. Ali Selim says it's important that something that is so precious, so sacred to people as their idea of God should be protected through speech laws, even though he also accepts that people can make an argument against religion, but you must do it respectfully, he says. Tony is in West Belfast. Hello, Tony.
Hello, William. Yeah, as always, it's a fascinating discussion that takes place around these issues, but to start off with a phrase which is I'm sure you're aware of, evidence of absence is absence of evidence. Now, I don't know, maybe I could be construed as being blasphemous as well, but obviously as an atheist, my point would be to your contributor there, who takes an opposing view. As an atheist, how could I be actually put in front of a court and a judge on the basis of being blasphemous against something that I don't believe in even exists?
So if we mean by blasphemous, Tony...
It just seems totally ludicrous.
Tony, if we mean by blasphemous that you use language that is grossly offensive to a great many people for whom that idea of God is very sacred, why would you want to be grossly offensive?
Well, it's not a case of it being intentionally grossly offensive, because as your previous contributor pointed out, that word grossly even has to manifest itself in different ways as well. But anything I say which in regard to the existence of God could be construed as grossly offensive. The very fact that I would turn around and say that I don't believe God exists, I don't think there's any justification to even put that view across, could be construed as in a similar way. So therefore,
could it really, though? I mean, Ali, you don't regard that as grossly offensive for someone to say, I don't believe that God exists, I don't think there's any evidence that God exists. Is that grossly offensive?
No, that's not offensive at all. People are entitled to believe or not to believe and to express their belief or their non-belief. But being a believer or not a believer does not give you the right to abuse what I believe in by calling it a bad name.
Ali, do you see or hear many examples of blasphemy in Irish society?
No, not at all.
I mean, is it likely that this law would never be used anyway?
Well, I definitely believe that it is not happening in Ireland. Nevertheless, there is a need to keep this regulation, and if it is not effective enough, we should make it more effective to guarantee and secure the cohesiveness of the society.
Oh, so you want to see more prosecutions under?
Yes.
Brian's in Glengormley. Hello, Brian.
Hello, William. William, I'm fortunate enough to have a very broad section of friends, of numerous friends and family. Of them all, Catholics, Protestants and unbelievers, I know about 2% of people who would be offended by anything that's about religion. And of those 2%, half of them only nominal Christians. They're not practicing Christians or of any religion. I spent yesterday morning on YouTube listening to a Baptist pastor in America called Stephen Anderson, who was advocating and supporting the fact that homosexuals and people who are disobedient to their parents are thrown off buildings and stoned to death. Every single word he says about the Old Testament is literal. Now, nothing that has ever been said in Britain as regards the life of Brian and things like that are on a par with what I heard yesterday. I was absolutely shocked. And I cannot believe for a minute. I was actually shocked, William, that law is still on the books here. And if anybody wants to prosecute me for it, you have my phone number. You can get my details. Send them to my door.
Brian, thank you very much. And that is the question some are asking, Michael Nugent. If the law's on the books here, there is a common law offence, put it more accurately, against blasphemy here, and we don't actually get prosecutions. It's a law that's pretty academic, isn't it?
Well, there may not be official prosecutions, but we certainly have experience in the Republic of Ireland of media outlets choosing to self-censor themselves simply because they don't want to get involved in even the possibility of a blasphemy case.
Right.
So it does have that chilling effect on the media that they will just do it anyway. It also has an international effect, which has been highlighted by the minister when introducing the bill for removing the blasphemy offence, and which has also been highlighted by Heiner Bielefeld, who is the former UN Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Religion and Belief, which is that Islamic states at the United Nations use the Irish blasphemy law to justify their own blasphemy laws. And in countries like Pakistan, where there's currently a Christian woman called Asia Bibi awaiting execution for blasphemy, and where 50 people were imprisoned on blasphemy charges during 2017, that it has an international effect, that it's important for us to help people in countries where the blasphemy laws are used to persecute, execute and imprison people.
Ali, just finally, what do you make of those states where they have a blasphemy law and include execution as a possible penalty?
Well, no, I just want to comment on one point. If there are countries who are using Ireland as an example in something, it means Ireland is doing something good. We better keep that.
No, not if they're using Ireland as an example to justify executing people.
No, justifying execution, just to protect mutual respect and reciprocal respect among members of one and the same society.
That's not what the UN says about Pakistan.
Well, the other countries who would be saying something different other than the UN.
Ali Selim from the Islamic Cultural Centre of Ireland, Michael Nugent from Atheist Ireland. Thanks to both of you.